Hello, this is JC Brady. Welcome to the second day of week 3. Today we're just going to put the assignment together, which is very similar to the assessment, only the assessment you're just going to be basically copying another poster. So that's why I was saying yesterday it's good to work in order this week. Start with the discussion, then do the assessment, and then do the assignment. So I'm going to cover the assignment. Seems to be the most freedom on the assignment to do what you want to do. And so that's what I'm going to kind of focus on. But it's good to have those done in order this week, just so you can kind of learn from the recommendation of each one of those. So with the discussion, you're going to research movie posters. With the assessment, you're going to copy another poster. And then by the time you get to the assignment, you'll have had some background and you should be able to put together something pretty cool and fun as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do the assignment. You hear my meowing cat in the background again. But I'm going to go ahead and put this together today. So let's go ahead and get started. What I've got some text here that I started with that I just did some research as far as I made up my own title called Ticket to Ride, kind of based on that Beatles song. And everyone's got a ticket to ride, but most don't care. This documentary covers 3 people who changed their lives in dramatic ways: a cashier who became a graphic artist, a cat trainer who became an animator, and a salesman who transformed into a creative director. You'll be amazed at their stories. So you'll need a little bit of a write-up here, something to put on the cover so that someone picks it up and knows what the story's about. At the very least, you need a tagline. This is my tagline here. This is my title. And then you can have any director, writer, stars. Those are kind of the main ones here. And I'll show you how you use that Steel Tongs font. It's kind of a different one, but you'll have to use that one. You have to make that one work. And you're going to have to use the glyphs panel in order to use it effectively. So we'll go over that today. But you have to go to this site, fonts2u.com, download that Steel Tongs font for all of the credits. So that would be one criteria that I'll be checking for on the grading on this project this week. So, just make sure that we get that font in there. And, you have the basic information that's going to be on most movie posters. So, look at a few, take inspiration and guidance from those earlier ones that you did for the discussion and the assessment, and figure out what goes on here. You're going to have kind of this information at the minimum, and you might have maybe a few more things. Maybe you have a PG rating or whatever rating you want. That's optional, but if you wanted to add extra things like that, you could do that, make it a little bit more authentic looking. These are just, I'm going to stick to the basics for mine. Again, I've got to try to put this together within less than a 2-hour time window. So I'm going to kind of keep mine minimal. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started. I guess, just make sure that you read through all of these. Fictional URL. So, that would be easy enough to do. I just, Ticket to Ride. Maybe it's Ticket to Ride movie. See, a lot of them do that. So, that could be, that's one I left out here in my write-up, but just add that. So, size is 9 by 13.6. I already have an idea in mind that I want to make this poster kind of look like a big ticket. And that's what I want to kind of utilize. 9 by 13.6 at 300 DPI. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and create in Photoshop. See, I've got these paper textures that I was looking at for ticket background. Kind of one I've got that's, these I just downloaded from, I can't remember exactly where I got these. You can also make things yourself by just scanning textures like this. But here's some really subtle texture, and then here's a little bit more of a texture. So these are some things that I'm planning to use for it. But I want to make my poster, the whole thing, kind of look like a ticket, shaped like a ticket. It might even be die cut. But, well, I think if they're giving us this size, then that kind of limits us. Let's maybe probably not do die cutting on this. Anyways, make a new document in Photoshop. And it's going to be 9 by 13.6. Make sure you're in inches, not pixels now. Those inches are important. 300 dpi, that's also something we're looking for. Okay, and there's our document. So that's this one. I think, as I said yesterday, feel free to work in just Photoshop and use the vector tools. But for me, I would much prefer working in Illustrator for the vector tools. I just am more comfortable, creating. Let's say I want to create a ticket for the background. That's kind of my key backdrop and overall kind of shape that I want to create. So I'm going to go ahead and do a new file in Illustrator as well. I already have in here 9 by 13.6. So I'm going to make it the same size just so I know that this is going to fit right when I bring this from Illustrator over into Photoshop. You can do that as much as you want. So here, let's maybe 9 by 1, 3. Kind of align this to the center. Well, I've got to make sure that I'm artboard option. Align it horizontally and vertically. And so I'm just going to make a ticket out of this. So what I can do is, well, take these, make circles, something like so. Like that. And like that. Kind of looks like a ticket. That's what I'm after. We can also get references if we want some sort of a reference. I looked up ticket earlier. You can see here we've got some different options, but tickets kind of they all have that kind of a cut edge like this, and a lot of them have that ruffled edge here and the numbers on each end. So I just looked at some tickets here for some reference. And this is what I want to use for kind of my background. So what I can do here is take these, bring them down to the other side. It's not like a perfect ticket format, but that's all right. Now I'll use the Pathfinder and then subtract from the front or the back. You can just select this, and I can use this one. Use this. Do it 4 times, so I just notch the corners. There's a few ways you could achieve that, but that one will work. So now we've got kind of a basic frame. Maybe something like maybe it's like this. So we're using this kind of as a frame. Kind of like that idea. And I'm even going to hold Option and bring these sides in. Oops. So there you can see that's kind of how my ticket's going to go. And So this just has a simple stroke that's black 1 pixel and then white fill. So you can take this and just Command C, which is copy, and then go into Photoshop here, which is the document we created here, and paste, Command V. It's asking me pixels or smart object. I'll just choose smart object. Retain that vector. Just allows it to stay more clean. If I decide to adjust this frame at all, I'm not going to start getting blurriness on those pixels. And probably kind of still debating on, do I want this more kind of obvious? I mean, that's a good ticket color. I can change the color to anything I want, but I'm just gonna put this on here for now. So we've got kind of a basic backdrop, and you know, maybe I want to do something different than the white with that background, but I'm not sure exactly at this point. I can add another layer, and I'll just click the background, kind of the very bottom layer, whatever yours might say. I tend to like to change this from background because I just, I mean, it's just a personal preference really, but I like being able to edit that bottom layer. And you have to double click on it and then edit it if you want to change it. Otherwise, it's locked by default. Now I can either create an adjustment layer, color layer here, and let's do that. Seems to be the easier route. Not really after purple, but maybe kind of a dark brown would be good. Again, I'm making these colors on the fly. Not quite finalized, but that'll work for now. So let's see, how about a few other ideas that I want to do. I've got a few sketches that I wrote down, that, very simple things of what I might want to do here. Why don't we get some text going with this? So ticket to ride. And again, you know, if you find that Photoshop's text is too weird to work with, I mean, give it a try, but a lot of people will just work in Illustrator or InDesign for their text and then just bring it into Photoshop if it proves to be too much of a pain to work with. So I'm going to try to work with it for now. Maybe, I don't know, a dark purple might work pretty well. I'm not really sure yet. I haven't finalized the color scheme. Just going to type this in, ticket to ride. Oops. Bring that up to the top. And I want this title to be really large. So first off, let's get it to be a scale that I like. This is the one thing that I do like in Photoshop. You can slide this over. Just drag the mouse to the right. Helvetica regular. I'm thinking Memphis font, or maybe Rockwell. I've got kind of this style in mind for the slab serif. It's a slab serif style typeface. I can look at Rockwell too if I want to. I think this is light and it's not quite what I'm after. This one is what I need. See, bold, it's a little bit more what I'm after. Let's look at Rockwell. Probably at least a bold, maybe even an extra bold. Kind of like that extra bold. Let's try it. The only problem is with I like the thickness of the font, but the only problem with it is the thing that I don't like is that it takes up a lot more horizontal space. I'm kind of limited for my horizontal space here. That's as big as I can get. And to me, that's not big enough for the title. I want a bigger title than that. I want the title to be really prominent. So a couple of things I can maybe try out here. If we did a line break, so it was on 2 lines like this, and we would make the word "to" really small. Let's go 42 point maybe. And then we'll baseline shift this up. Okay. So here we can go. I think I'm going to opt for the all caps option here. Maybe this could be lowercase. So it's a little better. Increase the space here. Some spacing issues. I haven't totally decided on this font, but I'm kind of liking the thick Rockwell a little bit better. So I just have to play around with that and figure out what I'm after. So we've got the tracking at 60 on both of these. And well, let's go ahead and make it larger. So does this really kind of announce the title? I think it does. We couldn't really see that title if it was just all one line going across. Now, since we dropped the title onto 2 lines, now we can make it nice and big. That becomes a main focal point as we're looking at in the discussion this week. What's a focal point of your piece? I want that title to be a real focal point. So I want this nice and big. And I'm not really wild yet about this color, but we can work on that color a little more. So I was kind of after this brown. And match this. Our text. And that'll work for now. I'm not wild about it yet either, but that might be something a little darker will actually work better. So back to messing with this title. I think we've got a little bit much distance on the leading from line to line, so I'm going to bring that up a little bit. I could either bring it up or add a line or do some kind of thing in here. But I'm going to first try the easiest thing, which is just adjust the leading. So here, this one thing again, I do like this in Photoshop with sliders. The ability to just, instead of having to type in here, I just hover over this and then slide it to the left or right. It's kind of cool. Ticket to ride. maybe I could do a center justified on that. That's looking a little better. Fits in there a little more anyway. And I could do something with the word to. I don't know that I'm wild about space between this. Just seems like too much. But that seems a little too little. So what I can do is just go to the metrics and then just kind of this one here. I'm just kerning this space here, so it's got a little bit more space, but it wasn't as much as like a full character space. So really that wasn't too bad using the character panel in Photoshop. And it seems like it's gotten better over the years, but you know, again, if you have a complicated typography treatment that you want to do, feel free to use a program like InDesign or even Illustrator and bring it in to Photoshop, kind of the same way that we did there. You just cut and paste it or drag and drop it, however you feel like doing it. And then, you know, you can just tell it to be a smart object and, you know, it works pretty well that way. So let's see, Ticket to Ride. Couple other things. Why don't we use, so something Carly was using last week, probably some of you were exposed to some of these shape tools in Photoshop. I mean, I could have easily probably done the shape tool in Photoshop, but it's so much easier in Illustrator. And why not just use Illustrator if you feel that way? That's how I look at it. You accomplish the same task. You're basically just bringing that vector artwork into the program or using Photoshop's vector, native vector tools, and you can go either way. But what I'm after here, I want to do the star shape. Some kind of maybe a burst. Looks kind of interesting. I think I remember them having a burst banners and awards. Maybe that one's it. Ornaments, you could try that. Append, that just puts it at the end here. I'm not really seeing any star shapes in that, but I do kind of like this one. Width and height, 100 by 100. Well, that was a lot smaller than I thought it would be, but anyway. So that was another idea to kind of bring focus up to this here. You may not need it really. It might be, if I decide it's a distraction, I don't have to use it, but you know, the other thing is I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to put in here. I know I want text in here. I know I want the credits down at the bottom because that's usually where they're at, and probably some photos that show the 3 characters that I talk about here in the write-up. So I'm not quite ready to use this. I'm not really sure exactly where I want to use that yet. All right. Let's bring some more text in. We can choose a different font now. Or the same one, really. I think I'm going to go with some sort of sans serif typeface. Myriad Pro's not bad. The one reason why I like Mrs. Eves as a font, I think that's a nice one, but the one reason I'm not wild about it is because it almost takes from the Rockwell font, which is kind of my main lead-in font with the slab serif. They're essentially two serif fonts, and that's why I'm looking for something a little bit different. That's why I'm after the sans serif. I'm going to keep looking though. I haven't found something that I'm wild about. I like the Gothic a lot, but I've been using that in a lot of projects. Helvetica could work for this, but it's kind of plain. Try a good Futura, that could work. Try Futura. Probably do the medium or the book. And I think make it quite a bit smaller for the tagline, maybe, I don't know, 20, 22, something in there. Let's see how that works. Let's grab it over. So I want this to fit for the most part underneath it. And I probably don't want to go smaller than 18. 18 would be the smallest I would think I'd want to go. You can always test things by printing it out, but I want people to read the tagline pretty easily. So to do that, it's just got to be in a comfortable range that people can read that title and then read the tagline fairly easily right after. Okay, so maybe 20. And I don't usually want on the lowercase, I don't want to space the lowercase. Typically, it's some people say you should never do that. I just think it depends on the font, depends on what you're after. You don't want to call attention to it by putting too much space between lowercase letters, because lowercase letters are meant to kind of go together visually. And if you put space between them, too much space gets really weird really fast. It just doesn't set comfortably with too much space between those letters. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this burst. I felt like I wanted some sort of burst in this piece to tie it together, to bring it kind of in the center. I'm going for a mostly centered layout at this point. So I'm thinking I'll use it at some point. I'm not exactly sure how, but it can kind of work how it is back there for now. Want to use it, just not quite sure how yet. So we'll see here. The other thing too, I feel like maybe we could use some sort of outline kind of thing to, let's look at these. See, I mean, a lot of these have these outlines, little inside frames. Depends on what style you're after, but a lot of them have that. So we could maybe do that, make it look a little bit more like a ticket. But you can see I'm using these for reference in how I put mine together. So, well, what are people used to when they look at a ticket? Well, we've got stars. That's a good thing. We could use stars. We could use these kind of frame, border, outline, things like this. We could also maybe use a number in there. So I'm picking up these various ideas of what is a ticket to people? What's going to sell them on this idea visually, that we've got this theme going on in our poster. Go ahead and save this, Command or Control S. Strange how long it's taking. That's weird. I just saved it and didn't ask me the title. Anyway, let's go to W3. Save it here. Everyone's got a ticket to ride, but most don't care. So these are the stories of 3 people that cared. Anyway, change their lives. How wonderful. So let's go in here, add this to the bottom. And anytime that I have more than, say, like 3 lines is a good general rule. I don't want to choose center text. I want to choose left align, because your eye reads this and then goes back to the same point here. And it's easier for people to read, body text especially. Really, even text that's more than 3 lines, you really want to consider if you want to make it more difficult on the reader to read that text, is the treatment of your text and what you're trying to say creatively, visually, is that more important than people's ability to read it? And a lot of times it isn't. Most of the time it isn't, in fact. So you just want to be pretty cautious in, I'm not saying you can never do it, but as a general rule, use the left alignment as a default. And you'll ensure that people will be able to read that text much more easily. We can make this smaller, probably 12 point, maybe 14 to read this. Seems like maybe larger. How about 16? And then, so my leading has got changed. We'll just pull this into. Usually it's a few more points than 16, so 18 would probably be a good place to start. And then then I have to ask, is it too tight? At that kind of like a couple more points, is it too tight? You just have to be the judge of that. But that's what I like to do, is just go a couple more points than, if I choose a size that I want. 16 looks good. So a couple more points over 16 would be 18. But when I looked at 18, it's a little too small. So now I'm just going to adjust that. How's 20 look? 16, 20, a few more points over. That's probably reasonable. I might even add more visually. Does it work? You just always want to have that balance between line leading. Too much and too little. I think I'm going to stick with 22 for now. That's looking okay. And the other stuff that I need to get on here are the credits. And for me, you can put, again, more things. You could put the producer, the executive producer. You can even put some of the cast in there if you want. It's kind of up to you, but I would probably say, look at some of those examples and see what are in there most of the time. Writer, director, and the stars are typically on the poster. So that's all I'm going to do for this. I'm going to put these people on here. And they're just, people I cut and paste from this site that we looked at yesterday. That's in there. It's IMP Awards. So you can get text, and I don't care if you cut and paste it from existing movie posters out there. That's fine. But just make sure it's on there and that you have addressed that and that you're using the right font for it. So steel tongs, and that is, as you'll see in a minute, a little bit different in terms of how you end up using that. This, I'm going to make kind of an imaginary alignment from either here, the edge of this T, or maybe it's a little bit more visual here. See, guides, turn those back on. And I can use kind of this as well to visually line that up. Those guides in there, and I'll. Now this is a ragged right edge. Maybe justified might work, but justified sometimes puts challenges and makes, again, another reading challenge where it puts too much space between the words. And, you know, you want people to read your write-up. So, again, I just have to kind of make that decision. I think that it might look better, but the fact that, I mean, we can see how it looks. So paragraph, let's just do a centered one. And a lot of times it's hard to tell if you are just looking at it in here. You have to print it out. If you're looking at it on screen, it's harder to really gauge that. I don't really know that it's all that. It doesn't really buy me too much. I'm just going to keep it left alignment, not justified. So I think that'll work a little better. Moving on to, how about this one? This one's easy. You can either put this, I think I'm going to put this at the bottom. Keep it the same size as the other text. And let's do the weird one. So this is go back to the our assignment here. So fonts to you. This is this one. If we go to this site and download this Steel Tongs font, and then just click when it says install. Just click yes. Basically, doesn't ask you much else. It'll unzip it. You'll have to unzip it and then click and install that font. So most of you won't have any issues there. But you have to use this font. It's required as part of the project. However, it's kind of quirky that you have to have caps lock on in order to access a lot of the characters. And so that's kind of a unique thing. I think glyphs is how you want to edit this. There's some glyphs. Let's go to have to bring this out and over, I guess. And Steel Tongs, we'll just type it in. ST, that's enough. Steel. Okay, where is it? Now I did install this. There we go. Steel Tongs. So we'll just select that. Now, as you can see, I'm going to make it larger here. You can drag this slider, zoom in, get it a little bit easier to look at. So caps lock, you have to have caps lock on in order to access a regular, regular letters. Otherwise, for example, well, let's try it out. I'm going to go and type here. If I don't have caps lock on, I'm going to type A. And if you see that I typed A, it's spelled out written by. So it's a little bit quirky. It's different. I'll make it larger so we can see it. So that's just by typing A. So it's like, all right, written by Joe. I'm not going to put a space. J-O-E. So you know how this font works. That's what it does. However, if I hit caps lock, written by Joe, name this. Now we can write that out, but we have to have caps lock on. And the only way that you're going to know, you're either going to have to cycle through the whole keyboard, which is no fun, or you can come into the glyphs panel and put a space here and then say, all right, well, let's say we want the director, written by, directed by. So I just double click that. Sam Elliott. And anyway, so that's how that font works. And it's a little bit different, but I'm sure you guys can figure that out. I'm just going to make these smaller. I can make a couple lines here, or I can make it run all the way across the screen. I'm just making up the names, obviously. How about we do executive producer, Tom Cruise. I'm sure if that's how he spells his name, but that'll work. So we've got that coming in at the bottom. And Tom Cruise, I don't think he has an E on his name. Probably C-R-U-Z, that looks right. So hit return, and here would be our stars. Or stars. Starring or stars. It's all about, I have to make this so big, we can make it a little smaller. You know, the weapons advisor. Whatever you want to put in the credits, it's up to you. Give me a handful of credits. I'm just looking for writer, director, and stars. That's all you really need. I put writer, director, executive producer, and then I'm looking for the stars in here. But, I'm sure they're in here somewhere. Written and directed by, you can do that one. Just keep it on the same one. All right, so weapon design. If you want, maybe if it's a war space science fiction movie where the weapons were really crazy, and you want to show them off, and you want people to know who that person was. It's kind of up to you in terms of, as long as you get the basics on there, what you want to add and what you want to kind of show off. Casting. So now I am unable to find stars. And you can't change these. That's the whole thing. Here we go. Starring. That works. We're going to have to adjust our leading again. We do it just the same. You can use numbers too. You can use the numbers here. That'd be fine. 36 and 43 looks about right. Starring. Whoops. See, that's one of the things that happens. Caps lock. Make sure that's locked. Naomi Watts. Actually, these are stars. So like, this is a documentary for mine. So I'm going to make up the names. How about Shelley Jones? And something like that. The unknown Ryan Adams. Okay, so that looks like a bit much space between the second line. So it works just like a normal font. Go up here, use my up and down arrows, and kind of fine tune it. Kind of compact in this area. Do I want to align it left? Maybe not here. Maybe I want this one to be aligned center. So let's see what that looks like. Probably looks a little better. And this here, I made the mistake of changing that font accidentally at some point. Let's try this. Let's go I for eyedropper. Can't remember if that works. If I can click on some other text, I don't think that method works in Photoshop because there's layers. So I'm gonna have to just, it's not a big deal. I'll just go up here and change this back to Futura Medium, which was my chosen sans serif body font. Not condensed, but I think it was Futura Book. That's what I chose. So Futura Book. I'll put it here. These fairly giant. Pull that down. All right, so it's coming along. I think I like how it's looking. I'd like to get everything kind of in here, basically how I want it, and then I can come back. I can work a little bit more on fine-tuning it and adding any other things we need to, fixing any kind of color scheme, working with the colors a little bit more. I want to add photos. I've got some photos that we got from this site that's provided us as the reference. It's this one here. Again, you could use Google. We watched this video yesterday in class. Use that for reference. You can always take your own photos. You don't have to actually use this particular recommended site, but this is actually a pretty good site, I think. So, well, I guess I don't have it open in my tabs, but it's in the assessment actually. It's this one, sxc.hu. So I just got a bunch of images. I typed in faces, and that's how I got them. Are you human? I haven't seen that before. Yes, I am. Thank you for verifying. Okay, that's weird. So I got a bunch of these from just faces. And anyhow, I've got these here. I want to we'll try out those three. Here are our main characters. A little smaller than I thought they were. All right, so now we've got, I have to be careful. You can usually blow up people a little bit, maybe like 10%. If you go more than 10%, it's getting kind of iffy. So, you know, just be the judge of it. If your photo starts looking low resolution, you don't want to go in that range, but you can blow it up a little bit. hopefully you have like an image that's high res, but for example, it's like, do we always have those available to us? A lot of times we don't. So that site's pretty good. It actually gives you different options for the downloads, but they don't all have that high resolution option. For a movie poster, actually, maybe the other one I had on white. Not really thrilled on that one. I could probably spend some more time looking on here for a little bit better one rather than having one on the white, or figure out some other way to compose this in here. But now you see we've got everything that we need to have on this poster. Kind of looking at it now and thinking, all right, what else has to be moved or reworked in this case? Okay, that's weird. That could go down and this could go up. Group the headline. Move our burst down a little bit. Kind of ties these together. And right now I've just got all of my content in here and a basic layout. I'm not quite sure what I want to do to finalize this, but like I said, I want to work with the images a little bit more. I want to work with the colors a little bit more, and figure out some way to kind of finalize it a little bit more. But I think basically what I have, I'm pretty happy with. I've got a good start here. Tweaking it and making sure that all of its things like this are centered. Those are kind of final steps that we could do. Just asking anything else, like I was going to put some sort of a border in here, might make this whole concept of the ticket a little bit better. So we can actually, I can do that really quick before we go on break. For this, so this is the size that we have the document size in Illustrator, the same size document size that's in Photoshop. So that's how I'm gauging this. But one of the things, if you notice, if I was to just go Command C and Command F and put another one of these things in, see how that corner doesn't adhere to the border? Like it's not quite right here on each of these. So this, things like this, I'm not sure how you would accomplish in Photoshop. In Illustrator, it's really simple to do this. This is what we want to do: object, path, and offset path here. So we're just going to make it a little smaller, selected preview, so you can see. We're going to So if you see now, that offset path actually conforms to that outer border with the line framing it just right. So I mean, this looks probably about right, maybe a little bit less than that. We can experiment. I'm going to try this out. So if it's not right, then that's no big deal. We can always come back and try it again. But I don't know how you would do something like that in Photoshop. It's just, you get to those places where you're just not able to control those things on a fine-tuned level. Vector paths and some of these things that we do with those are, I didn't want to fill there. That actually doesn't look so bad by mistake. I think that actually looks kind of good, but I'm going to stick to my original idea first. Go back, and I'm going to go turn off that center fill. So then we're going to come back in here. So this is what I had in mind. I might end up liking that other on white version a little bit more, but anyways, yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Obviously, I'm going to have to adjust some of these things here. That should be easy. But yeah, you just have a lot more control over some things. If it's a vector-based program, that's natural. You are going to have a lot more control over it. If it's, vector in nature. That's kind of setting in there pretty well. I like how that fits. So I'm trying to think what I might do in here. I might do something different in here. We looked at these lines being on tickets. I could do something really simple here with a line tool. Something this simple. Why not stick with, and actually this should be black. That's what I use from Illustrator, just a simple black stroke. But why not use, if it's a simple enough tool, another one up here. That's kind of looking good. So not quite sure what I want to do yet, but I like how it's coming along. This is interesting because I figured this line tool was set up to be 1 pixel, and our stroke from Illustrator was 1 point. But if you look at these two, the widths compared, you notice that 1 pixel and 1 point, ideally they're supposed to be the same, but they're not coming through quite the same in the translation from InDesign to, Illustrator to Photoshop. So you can see this is quite a bit thicker, and that's something I'm probably going to want to address. Fairly, I can show that more to the point. So that's a 1 pixel stroke done in Photoshop, whereas that's a 1 pixel stroke done in Illustrator when we brought it in. So that's kind of weird. That, shouldn't a pixel be a pixel? I don't know. For some reason, that translation's not coming in quite right. But, we can always just go, let's say, what do you want? Do you like the thin look? I kind of like the thin. And so for that, I should just change it here. So if it's a smart object, I can just double click on the smart object and open in kind of like the smart object version. But I can just go into stroke, and then I'm guessing about half of what it was, 0.5. Let's see if that works. So, close it. Yeah, save. Go back into Photoshop. Yeah, they're still not consistent, but I've got to look at that and think, all right, do I like that? I think I like that. So you run into a few small inconsistencies when you're jumping back between the programs like that, but you can always correct them. I did mention like a few projects where the stroke wasn't consistent, like it was thick on some and it was really thin on others, and that's something that you want to correct if you're noticing something like that, because it's not really an intentional thing that you do as a designer is make those different. Sometimes you might in certain situations, but just make sure that it's deliberate and you know that you're doing that. In a situation like this, it's close enough that it might work. Again, I might not be able to tell unless I printed it. But you know, the other thing I can do on this one is just draw another line. It says 3-point black. Hold down the Shift key. So I might have to work with things like that a little bit. Let's go. Line tool again. So anytime I select the line tool, okay, now I've got fill on there. All right, I think this will work. Black. Stroke. Let's go 1 point. So there we go. Now we've got this stroke filled in. Now I think this is going to work, but actually what I was looking at, 0.5. So that's what I made this other one. Now that should be this exact same, hopefully. Hopefully it's going to look the exact same as our border, and it does. So now we've got it. Well, I think it does. Close enough, I think, for now, but anyway, I'll delete this upper one and then just option drag this lower one that I just created. And now all our stroke widths are the same. So just one of those inconsistencies that was caused a few students last week some trouble on their projects, but you know, just be aware of the unified stroke width. And if you do want to make them different, there's nothing to say you can't, but just make them visibly, significantly different. And you know, just be aware of that, how it will draw attention to itself in a way that you normally don't want, you know, unless you consciously change it to what you're after. You know, just be aware of what you're putting down and keep those stroke widths consistent. So anyhow, that's good enough for now. Why don't we do a 10-minute break here and just kind of finalize it when we come back. I'm just going to look at those things I mentioned earlier, see what I can do to make this even better. We're at the point where we've got all our content on there. We've got a decent project. It's in the A range, I would say. It hits all the points. You've got a decent layout going. It's understandable, but does it have that wow factor yet? Not quite. And I want to try to make it have a little bit more of a wow factor going on to it. So that's what I'm going to go for. Come back from the break, and hopefully that's what you're asking yourself. It's like, what more can I do? How can I improve this? Is there anything that can be done? And if the answer is no, you like it, it's finalized, then it's probably finalized. And you've got, just make sure that you've got everything that you've read over, and you've got everything that you need included, and we should be good to go. So let's do a save and take a 10-minute break. We'll see you in 10 minutes.